Hello everyone. On this special Poetry Changes Lives session, I'm talking about the Nativity for the last time this year before Christmas becomes a memory and indeed something to look forward to for next year. I just want to mention the aspect of the Nativity of Christ as a travelogue, because the Nativity story is basically one of three journeys. The journey of Joseph and Mary from Nazareth to Bethlehem. Secondly, the journey of the Magi, the three wise men from the east to Bethlehem. And thirdly, the escape of the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, from Bethlehem to Egypt to escape the awful massacre of King Herod. So there are three stories in one. The Nativity is basically several travel stories. And there are three very different types of travel. One journey was taken because it was required by law. That was the journey, the first. Joseph and Mary had to go to Bethlehem. They were required to by the Roman emperor of the time, who was undertaking a census of all people within his empire, and they had no choice in the matter. The second journey was one taken by the wise men, the three kings, whatever you call them, the Magi, and that was totally voluntary, taken in hope, because they felt something stir within them that they should follow a star and find the Messiah. The third journey was taken out of necessity and fear. It was a form of escape because, as we are told in the Bible, the angel of the Lord came and warned Joseph to get up and run, basically, because Herod and his soldiers were advancing to massacre all children under the age of 2, I think. And they had very little time and very little choice in the matter. So those three journeys tell us really everything about the human condition and the types of journey that we often find ourselves on. Mary and Joseph didn't set out to Bethlehem in the first place because they wanted to. They were not pilgrims, they were not seekers of any kind. They travel simply because they are told to get on the move, because a census was happening and their names needed to be on the list. It was a long road to walk, and Mary, of course, being heavily with child, would not have wanted to travel anywhere at all. And you have to really feel for them. They must have been really reluctant to make the journey, but they were obedient, good citizens, and they did what they were told. They had obviously had a feeling of anticipation. All journeys have that, but theirs was a double anticipation, because Mary knew and Joseph knew that they were shortly to become parents of the Son of God. And wow, so much anticipation around that. I'm just going to read a short poem, or the beginning of that famous, wonderful Advent carol, Veni, Veni, Emmanuel. O come, Emmanuel. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that doth in lonely exile mourn, until the Son of God be born. Such a beautiful, beautiful expression of hope and anticipation. And Mary must have felt that. Of course, we don't know exactly what she was feeling, but it must have been a feeling of wonder, fear, anticipation, and just sort of faith, really. She had no choice but to trust. Well, obedience was sort of the hallmark of Joseph and Mary, and they certainly showed it in their journey to Bethlehem. Most of our lives are composed of journeys of some kind, some long, some short. The journey of the Magi was a journey of hope, and sometimes we make that journey too. Sometimes it's just embarking on a spiritual journey, for example. The Magi's journey could be seen as that, very different from that of Mary and Joseph. The Magi are under no compulsion to travel at all. No one summons them. No law requires their obedience. They go because something has stirred within them. A light has suddenly come on, a sense that the world might be turning towards a new meaning. And at the same time, part of them probably didn't want to go. And I'm going to read a little of T.S. Eliot's famous poem, The Journey of the Magi, which is the voice of one of the three wise men talking about their journey, looking back on it. It starts like this. A cold coming we had of it. Just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey, the ways deep and the weather sharp. It wasn't in any sense a sentimental pilgrimage. They, the weather was bad, he says. They had certain doubts, and really part of them didn't want to go at all. But on the other hand, they felt compelled from within. And the interesting thing is, in Eliot's poem, the speaker says he's glad that they went, even though they struggled and there was so much hardship, because they came back changed men. He says, we returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation. Something had changed in them, and something always changes when you go on a spiritual journey. We can't fail to be changed by our experience. And indeed, I think on any journey, whether it's spiritual or simply going on a summer holiday, you always come back a little bit different. Travel broadens the mind, as they say. And when you travel in hope, as the three wise men did, then you get a dividend, you get a result. Seeking truth may bring joy. It may not, but it will never leave us unchanged. And then that third desperate journey, that escape, that journey of fear, the third journey is the one we speak of least when we talk about Christmas, but it's highly important, of course. And this time, the Holy Family, as they now are, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, they flee, they run by night with no plan beyond survival. This is not a spiritual quest. This is a simple escape, a refugee road, you may say. And it bears, the angel of the Lord comes to Joseph in his sleep and tells him, get up and go right now. I'm going to read part of a poem by the Irish poet Catherine Tynan, who died of roughly 100 years ago. I think she died in 1930. And it's very beautiful. It's a long poem. And it begins like this: The Flight into Egypt. Joseph sleepeth in a room white with moonlight. Outside, Bethlehem lies still in the moon. Joseph dreameth and uttereth aloud his dream. Here it is. Are they not safe? I heard, methought, the crying of women, sore distraught. And though they lonely sound, I caught the shriek of babes, and then clashing of swords and oaths, and fierce wild laughter rang against mine ears. Mine eyes beheld the dripping spears in hands of wicked men. 'Twas night in Bethlehem did seem all through the horror of my dream, and woe to Bethlehem, I heard a voice cry on. And he goes on like that for a bit, and the angel of the Lord comes to Joseph, saying, Joseph, arise, no time for sleep. If thy trust with God would keep, leave Bethlehem town to wail and weep. But thou, up and away, take mother and child and ride in haste across the desert still and vast. And of course, Joseph has no choice. He gets up, wakes his wife and child, and together they rush away. He saddles up his donkey, and they escape to Egypt, of course. And the poem ends very beautifully, I think, like this. When heaven is won, O happy little child, now sleep, and sleep, my Jesus small, for little birds are sleeping all, and shadows lengthen on the wall, and fades the daylight mild. So there we are, the 3 journeys of the Nativity. The reluctant journey, but the journey made in obedience by Joseph and Mary to Bethlehem, the journey of hope made by the 3 wise men to Bethlehem because they were stirred from within, and the frantic escape from Bethlehem at the warning of the angel by the Holy Family, the escape to Egypt. 3 journeys, 1 message, really. Life is a journey, and we travel, and it never leaves us unchanged. Thanks for listening today. Have a good day.